Some of them set up their long guns and fired at random over the barrage line, then gave it up. They realized that they had no target to shoot at, no way of knowing whether our gunners were a few hundred feet or several miles beyond it. Their ultraphone men, of whom they did not have many, stood around in tense attitudes, their helmet phones strapped around their ears, nervously fingering the tuning controls at their belts. Unquestionably, they must have located some of our frequencies and overheard many of our reports and orders. But they were confused and disorganized. If they had an ultraphone boss, they evidently were not reporting to him in an organized way. They were beginning to draw back now before our advancing fire. With intermittent desperation, they began to shoot over our barrage again, and the explosions of their rockets flashed at widely scattered points beyond. A few took distance pot shots. Oddly enough, it was our own forces that suffered the first casualties in the battle. Some of these distance shots by chance registered hits, while our men were under strict orders not to exceed their barrage distances. Seen upon the ultrascope viewplate, the battle looked as though it were being fought in daylight, perhaps on a cloudy day, while the explosions of the rockets appeared as flashes of extra brilliance. The two barrage lines were not more than 500 feet apart when the Sensings resorted to tactics we had not foreseen. We noticed first that they began to lighten themselves by throwing away extra equipment. A few of them, in their excitement, threw away too much and shot suddenly into the air. Then a scattering few floated up gently, followed by increasing numbers, while still others, preserving a weight balance, jumped toward the closing barrages and leaped high, hoping to clear them. Some succeeded. We saw others blown about like leaves in a windstorm, to crumple and drift slowly down, or else to fall into the barrage, their belts blown from their bodies. However, it was not part of our plan to allow a single one of them to escape and find his way to the Hans. I quickly passed the word to Bill Hearn to have the alternate men in his line raise their barrages and heard him bark out a mathematical formula to the unit bosses. We backed our ships as the explosions climbed into the air in stagger formation until they reached a height of 3 miles. I don't believe any of the Sensings who tried to float away to freedom succeeded. But we did know later that a few leaped the barrage, got away, and ultimately reached New York. It was those who managed to jump the barrage who gave us the most trouble. With half of our long guns turned aloft, I foresaw we would not have enough to establish successive ground barrages, and so ordered the barrage back to 2 miles, from which positions our curtains began to close in again. This time, however, gauged to explode, not on contact, but 30 feet in the air. This left little chance for the Sensings to leap either over or under it. Gradually, the two barrages approached each other until they finally met, and in the gray dawn, the battle ended. Our own casualties amounted to 47 men in the ground forces, 18 of whom had been slain in hand to hand fighting, with a few of the enemy who managed to reach our lines, and 62 in the crew and kite tail force of Swooper number 4, which had been located by one of the enemy's ultrascopes and brought down with long gun fire. Since nearly every member of the Sensing gang had, so far as we knew, been killed, we considered the raid a great success. It had, however, a far greater significance than this. To all of us who took part in the expedition, the effectiveness of our barrage tactics definitely established a confidence in our ability to overcome the Hans. As I pointed out to Wilma, it has been my belief all along, dear, that the American explosive rocket is a far more efficient weapon than the disintegrator ray of the Hans once we can train all our gangs to use it systematically and in coordinated fashion. As a weapon, In the hands of a single individual shooting at a mark in direct line of vision, the rocket gun is inferior in destructive power to the dis ray, except as its range may be a little greater. The trouble is that to date, it has been used only as we used our rifles and shotguns in the 20th century. The possibilities of its use as artillery and laying barrages that advance along the ground or climb into the air are tremendous. The dis ray inevitably reveals its source of emanation. The rocket gun does not. The dis ray can reach its target only in a straight line. The rocket may be made to travel in an arc over intervening obstacles to an unseen target. Nor must we forget that our ultranists now are promising us a perfect shield against the dis ray in Inertron. I tremble, though, Tony dear, when I think of the horrors that are ahead of us. The Hans are clever. They will develop defenses against our new tactics, and they are sure to mass against us not only the full force of their power in America, but the united forces of the world empire. They are a cowardly race in one sense, but clever as the very devils in hell, and inheritors of a calm, ruthless, vicious persistency. Nevertheless, I prophesied, the finger of doom points squarely at them today, and unless you and I are killed in the struggle, we shall live to see America blast the yellow blight from the face of the earth. The end. Or until the next chapters enter the public domain.